Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Future of Work series. This is a series where Micrographio talks to a lot of personalities and entrepreneurs from the industry and seek the opinion about future of work, how is the workforce trends emerging, what are the challenges, what are the expectations, and how the industry is coping with it. I'm extremely glad to welcome Ms. Latha Pandiarajan, a well-known entrepreneur, and activist in the startup forums in Chennai. And we are very glad to have you, Latha, here for this particular interview on this interview. And we'd like to hear from you a lot.
Thank you so much, Santosh. Thanks a ton.
And in terms of how the industry is emerging and your views on it. Latha, to start with, you would have seen post-pandemic a lot of changes emerging in the way the workforce is, working across in a distributed manner. And with the multiple options, what they have with respect to work from home, remote work, hybrid work, we hear a lot of terms now emerging, which was not there before. 2 years back, a couple of years back, all of us had to go to office. Today, part of it is in office, part of it is at home. Then you have a hybrid model, then you have a distributed model. What do you think this is emerging and where is it leading to? I mean, how are you seeing the industry coping with this new trend, how workforce is getting distributed?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think lots of things. I read one nice a statement the other day which said, some jobs will be created, some jobs will be lost, but everything will change. Okay, so I think we can see that. And honestly speaking, I would say that these kind of changes have been happening for the last 4-5 years. Okay, so automation, digitization, and all that. And in my view, I think pandemic has really preponed or made it really faster, in my view. Okay, some of these changes. And of course, I think pandemic has redefined life completely. I think many paradigms have really, changed as such, not only in the workplace, but even in just to live as such. I think so. I think lots of changes in this hybrid model, work from home, and things like that. And so, in my view, I think it's a good thing to happen, honestly. And I really feel this work from home or to make it more interesting. I know Micrographio is very much into this space of work near home. Okay. And that's honestly very close to my heart also. And I really feel, I think it is one thing, I think in a country like ours, which is really large and, so many different kinds of people coming from different parts of the country, I think it's so important that we really understand that, we need to have a growth in the tier 2, tier 3 towns as such. And hence this model of work near home is something which we should encourage. And I can see a lot of employees today wanting it that way, rightly so. I feel there are very many reasons for it also that way. So yeah, I think so. As I said, this work from home or work near home is something I think every employer should really think about that way, except obviously, as we know, in some industries it's not very easy, the manufacturing industry, the shop floors, and things like that. But wherever possible, where we can really have people work close to their homes, I'm for it. I always feel, I think it's much better, much more productive. And to me, I think it's not only the working part, I think it's the quality of life also that way. I honestly feel, I think it's time that we look at employment as a whole, job as a whole. Okay, and not look only at the working aspect of it, but it as what it does to a person and how he or she is able to really go about the job or the life or his or her life as such as a whole. Okay, in that sense, I really feel, I think like, this hybrid models or work near home models is something I think which we should really encourage as such.
Great, great.
Thank you, Latha.
Priya? Yeah.
Yeah. A related question, Latha, to you.
Yes,
Have you observed any behavioral and demand changes of the workforce today? And what are the suggestions you have to manage those?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. I think, as I said, like, today employees want, I think, flexibility in that way. And it's important. I always feel like, being in the HR field for so many years, and I tell my HR people also, it's one of the most interesting phases for HR as such. Okay. Because I think you need to really have to see to it that you need to give employees flexibility. At the same time, see to it is to how to keep them connected that way. I think that's a challenge that way. Even, for all employees today, I think the greatest need is how do we establish connectedness, and there has to be a sense of purpose that way. So how do we really get all the employees to feel connected and to really understand the sense of purpose? Okay, so in that sense, I really feel it's a golden time for HR people, HR professionals, to come up with creative ideas as such. And because the demand from the employees is really increasing in terms of this flexibility. At the same time, they also want to see to it that, they don't miss out on growth. Okay, so being away from office space and things like that. And so see, office physical coming to office and things like that has its own advantages. Okay, the main advantage being that it gives that community feeling, meeting each other kind of a thing. And so today the challenge is in the work from home model or work near home model, how do we create that way? And with the kind of changes that have happened in technology, I think today it is possible. Okay. And so I think that is something which is very, very important. And I really feel behavior wise, I think pandemic has also brought about a lot of changes emotionally, okay, for an employee. And coping with it is extremely critical today. And I think it's very important for us to recognize that. Okay, work from home or work near home, where you don't have all your employees, all your peers to be, together as such. It's so important to figure out as to what kind of changes the employee has to go through emotionally. Okay, and then see as to put policies together to see to it that, we are not, it's not physically alone, but emotionally, how do we connect with the employee at this point in time? Okay. And most of the time, I've seen employees struggle with the kind, like at one level, it may look very nice to be working at home and things like that. But I think most employees, I think the working hours have changed. I think the difference between personal and professional spaces have really blurred. Okay, there's hardly anything but as personal space today. Okay, so I think like we all know that internet has invaded our bedrooms and every room possible, even at home that way. So I think all this also puts a certain stress, okay, on the employee. I think it's very important that many times I've seen in my own personal experience the employee not being able to express that very clearly, but all these things manifest in the way he's working that way. Okay, so I think it's critical for us to really figure out that way the behavioral patterns of the employee because of the stress induced by some of these changes that are happening in terms of working from home and things like that. So I think, if you, Priya, you asked me like, what is it they're demanding? I think I've always seen employees demanding, I think, transparency in communication that way. Okay. trust. I think these two T's are extremely critical. I think if we are able to, as an employer, if we can handle these two T's well, okay, trust and transparency in communication, I think we will be able to really handle this remote working much better as such, in my view.
Awesome, awesome, Latha. I can't agree with you more. Me also managing the HR part here. Thank you so much for that insight. So a very interesting question I have now for you. How do you see this change in work culture impacting women at workplace?
Yeah, I think like women as such, in my view, I really feel at one end, I really feel, yeah, it's really helpful working from home and things like that. But when I say this thing between professional and personal spaces, it's blurred now. I think it affects a woman a lot more that way. Okay, staying at home, at least earlier, you finish your work at home and then go to an office space, and then you're completely there. Here, what happens is, I think still, whatever said and done in a Indian household, the woman is the center, who manages the entire household, be it husband, spouse, children, elders at home and things like that. So when it is that, I think like to carve out that professional space for her separately in that private domain, it becomes very difficult in that way. Okay, that struggle I'm really seeing with the woman as such a lot more. Okay, although as I said, like it's good, especially the commute part of it has reduced considerably that way. And I think in cities, in large cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi and all that, people end up commuting an hour or 2 hours and all that. I think that's a great boon, and especially for a woman that way, because she can sit at home and finish her work, so she ends up gaining that almost 2 to 3 hours per day as such. But I think the emotional stress comes from this kind of managing both together in one space. And I honestly feel like what Micrographio is doing in terms of creating these co-working spaces close to where a person lives, I think is the greatest boon in my view, especially for a woman. Okay, and I think like because it helps in that sense, like you don't commute too long. At the same time, you have a space which is a lot more dedicated to work, where you are not disturbed as such. So I think in that sense, I really feel, I think women at one level, I think there's a comfort, there's a flexibility. But another level, I think work from home itself, in my view, is not, it's a little counterproductive in my view. Okay, I think like work near home is a much better option for a woman as such. And I see since you said woman, I think when it comes to women entrepreneurs, no Priya, I feel today, I think like they're having a lot of opportunities, especially with technology. So I think work from home or doing business from home for a woman entrepreneur has become much, much easier that way. And I've seen in the last 3-4 years, even in tier 2 towns, there are so many women entrepreneurs, sitting at home, selling their products online, either baking, cooking, packaging, so many things that way. And that is very, very heartening, honestly, because, it gives them that independence, that freedom to do many things that way. And that's a good sign in that sense, for women entrepreneurs. For women professionals, as I said, I think this work near home concept is a great concept, in my view.
Lena, I had a related question since you spoke about women entrepreneurs, and I know you're very passionate about that subject. As a person. We are also seeing a lot of entrepreneurship developing in the small towns, and when I just look at the number of startups which are formed beyond Chennai, as I call it, in Trichy, Salem, Erode, etc. It's a very encouraging sign I see in Tamil Nadu and many other, southern state, at least from what I've understood. But what they lack probably is a bit more mentorship, client outreach, and ways to scale their business that are being limited out there. So, uh, what do you think we can do collectively as people in the industry who all of us have a like-minded vision of developing that local economy? What do you think we can do to encourage uh, entrepreneurs in small towns, especially women entrepreneurs, to get the right access to funds and scale their business?
Yeah, I think,
What
yeah,
could be the
as you
best
read,
methods?
sure, sure, Santosh. As you rightly said, this is one thing which is very close to my heart. And I've been working with various forums on this. That way, we have an organization called Native Lead. And Native Lead, by and large, works in tier 2, tier 3 towns in Tamil Nadu. That way, to create an entrepreneurship ecosystem. That way, because I really feel what our country needs today is mass entrepreneurship that way. And because if whatever said and done, it is the SME sector which can create so many jobs in the tier 2, tier 3 towns as such. So yeah, in Native Lead, our focus has been, our endeavor has been to create an entrepreneurship ecosystem. So when I say entrepreneurship ecosystem, as you rightly said, everything relating to information, ideas, funding, and not only funding, hand holding them, mentoring them, okay, market linkages that way, So how do we really create this whole entrepreneurship ecosystem for entrepreneurs to really, develop? And as I said, I think technology is a great enabler today. And so scaling up becomes much easier. And today you can sit in Kanyakumari and do business with America, kind of a thing. And so I can see a lot of women entrepreneurs. As I said, like, I've been part of another award thing called Homepreneur Awards, which we've been doing for the last 4 years, where we really award women who've been at home and are able to really contribute, grow their business, kind of a thing. And you won't believe, like, last year we had, I think, more than 1,000 plus nominations that way, only in Tamil Nadu, basically. And almost 60% to 70% of them from the tier 2, tier 3, or even tier 4 towns, I would say, like, small villages. There are women now. See, I think, especially when it comes to women, I think many things have happened. I think the greatest empowerment, I think, a woman today in the last 20 years that has happened in this country, especially in Tamil Nadu, has been the education. Okay, today, I think, as you know, Tamil Nadu, especially, like, our gross enrollment ratio is almost 50%. Okay, so 2 in 1 child goes to college in that sense. Okay, and today, I've been traveling the length and breadth of the state for so many years. And I've seen today, wherever I go, even in a small village, the girls out there are educated. Okay, so it started with, they finishing 10th. And then after a few years, whenever I traveled, I saw they finished their 10th standard, then 12th standard. And today, wherever I travel, by and large, everybody is a graduate that way. Okay, so that's been the first step of empowerment. And today I see a lot of movement towards the second important step, that's financial independence. Okay, so all the girls who are educated today want to really do something on their own. Okay, something to really, say that, I can stand on my own legs, kind of a thing, which is, as I said, a wonderful feeling. Okay, so, but I think a lot needs to be done. A lot of movement has to happen that way to create this ecosystem. As to see, most of them, okay, they may have ideas, but they don't know what to do with it. And then, like, they start something small, they don't know how to scale up, where to go for funds and things like that. So I think, like, that ecosystem building is something, I think, which is very, very important. I think lots of initiatives are happening in tier 2, tier 3 towns. And I think interesting, as I was talking about Native Lead, like, we have funded 15 initiatives from small towns. And the best part is, all these funding also has happened as micro investment from the people in the tier 2, tier 3 towns. So they've invested 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, up to 5 lakhs, kind of, as equity. Okay, so I mean that's a good model where you have micro ventures also funded by investors from the same ecosystem as such, that way. So I think that's an important movement that's happening. I think it should happen in the whole country, in my view, and I think a lot of encouragement. I think government also has a lot of schemes these days, that way. For educated youth, there is a scheme. They give loans, they give subsidies. There is a scheme called Needs, where even up to 5 crores, government gives loans at a very, very low interest rate, even at 6% interest rate and things like that. Okay, so one is, I think, awareness creation is extremely important, that way. Giving them the confidence. I think social media is playing an extremely critical role today. Okay, I think like even in small towns, I can see youngsters seeing social media and being able to really generate ideas that way. Okay, so that's an important move which I see. And but I think, yeah, it's as I mean corporates or others, I think it's important that we are able to really help them move to the next stage after ideation. Yeah, what else? Where do we get the funds? How do we really put the group together? Getting the team together, getting them to perform. Okay, getting the market. I think that another important thing is market linkage. Okay, and there I really feel. Like I was really amazed. A couple of months back, I met a lady, who's just been doing embroidery work, and she said, like, she's been earning so much by just putting her things on Facebook and LinkedIn and social media or YouTubes and things like that way. Okay, sitting in a very small town. So I think today that's the kind of what to say, like, accessibility they have in that sense, using technology. I think the country has done quite well, in my view, in the last 10 years when it has come to giving access to tier 2, tier 3 towns. And more importantly, because I think the greatest struggle for a woman entrepreneur or even woman professional is mobility, that way. And today, like, technology has completely given them a big boon in terms of, you don't have to be mobile. You can just sit at home and do what you want, kind of a thing. I think, in my view, a lot more we can do in terms of getting them to be more empowered, the women in the tier 2, tier 3 towns as such. But as I said, like, I'm happy to see that, a lot of movement has also happening, and it's happened in the last decade or so.
Great, great. Priya, you had a point on skill development which you want to check.
Yes. So we're talking about tier 2, tier 3 cities and all. When we consider candidates from a tier 3 town, how do you see the soft skill deficit being managed? What kind of skill development program should they focus on?
Yeah, I think, Priya, this is very, very important in my view. As I said, I think we've crossed this first step of empowerment for a girl child or a woman by giving them some basic education. Okay, I think thanks to many of the policies, today, I think access to education is there at the almost at the doorstep. Every village, at least in states like Tamil Nadu, I know for sure that, almost every village has a school. Okay, a government school or an aided school or whatever it is. I think so. In my view, I think that's very critical, and that's happening. Okay, and yeah, I think the next step, if you really see, is to see as to how do we get them to really compete in a world which is very fast paced, which is very competitive. Okay, so we've been training a lot of rural students over the last almost 3-4 years through many government schemes, the PMKVY, DDU, GKY, many of these government schemes are there, state government schemes are there, central government schemes are there. And through our foundation also, we've been training a lot of these rural students. And personally, I've seen many of them. Many of them are very, very good technically. Okay, whether it's maths or science and all that, concept wise they'll be very good. But the only difference between a city kid and a rural kid is the rural kid will not be able to really present it well Okay, and especially when it comes to English, I think like it becomes very difficult for them. Okay, so I think the skill building is extremely critical. And being in the recruitment space for more than 3 decades, I've seen that most of the employers even tell us, okay, if we have to give, if it's 100% for recruiting a fresher, of that maybe only 40 to 50% goes for academics and what the person has done. 50% is mainly for the skills he or she has developed. Okay. So I think that part, in my view, has to happen in the school system itself. Okay. But it's not happening right now. Okay. So I think today, very, very important for us to see that we impart these skills, because from the employer point of view, I can say that any fresh recruitment, who comes into our organization, it takes us 6 months to train that fresh resource that way. So literally 6 months salary is an investment, okay, for us from the employer point of view. And I always feel, if we are able to really impart skills to them in a way that we reduce this to even 2 to 3 months, so that a resource comes in and within 2 months or 3 months, he or she becomes productive in an organization, we've done a great service in that sense. Okay, even to the economy as such, if you really see. Okay, so I think it's very important we are able to really impart good skills that are required from the job point of view. Okay, and it's important that, see, this word skill gap or employability gap. I think we've been talking about it for the last 3 decades. Right from 92, we started MAFA, and I remember we talked about it, and even today we talk about it. In fact, it's become even worse in the sense the gap is widening. Okay, so I think a lot needs to be done in terms of skilling them correctly, so that understanding the job world well, understanding that the kind of gaps that are there, okay, and then being able to really take that to the rural space and get the rural kids to really be able to measure up to that level which the employer really requires. Okay, so I really think skill building, there's a lot to do, and we have to do. I think next 10 years, I think the country has to really spend a lot, every corporate, every person. I think it should be part of the CSR, okay, that we are able to skill the kids, because only then I think we will be able to really even dream of a developed country in a certain sense. Okay, I think the greatest asset our country has is its youth. Okay, we are a young country in that sense. Okay, but I think the youth needs to be skilled well, so that we are able to really get them to be productive in that sense and to add to the value of the economy.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's fantastic vision. I have, in the interest of time, I have one more last question, and after that we'll wind up. Uh, you've been in the industry for more than 3 decades, like you said, part of the HR field, one of the pioneers in the industry in that sense. So, is the definition of employee changing today? Okay. We had a time when getting an employment was a privilege. Sticking to one job was mattered a lot from a safety point of view, financial stability point of view. And then we saw it changing towards people freely shifting jobs to multiple career options. Then we have the younger generation had a choice of pick and choose. Now we come to a stage where people are saying, I don't want to be an employee, I like to be a freelancer. The moonlighting debate is still going on, what you want to do. People are now saying, I don't want the stability of a single salary. I like to be a consultant. I like to work for 3-4 people. I don't want the bonus. It's completely changing the way we have seen it in the last 5-6 years at least. So is the definition of an employee in your mind changing today? Where is it heading towards to?
Well, I think definitely, Santosh, I think it is changing. The way employees are looking at job, I think career, I think has changed completely in the last 3 decades. And those days I remember, like, especially like the earlier generation, my parents, my father and all that, like, they joined one. My dad used to be in the railways, so he joined railways, he retired from the railways. Okay, nobody ever thinks of, changing that way a job or a career or whatever it is. Okay, so everybody was wedded to a job, like completely one place, one thing. Today, I don't think so. And I think people, in my view, are wedded more not to the company but to the role, that way. Okay, so they want to keep enhancing their skills, learn new things. They want flexibility. Okay, so, and I think like that's the right way to go, in my view. I think the millennials or the Gen Z, I think, but I think today I feel this generation is much more creative because of that. Okay, so they have had a lot of opportunities. Okay, so I remember even in our organization, we used to always have a debate whether we should take for recruitment, for recruitment consultants, whether we should take graduates or the MBAs. Okay, and why don't we take the graduates and train them? Because they will be less expensive than going to the MBA schools and recruiting MBAs and all that. Okay, but I was always of the opinion that we need to have both, that way. And we need to have the MBAs, though, because people always used to tell me, since I used to handle HR, people always tell me, no, because they will leave us in 2 years and 3 years. They don't stay on, they're not really satisfied. But I always said, like, but one thing they bring to the table is their creativity. Okay, and organization needs that new ideas, that way. Okay, so in a sense, you need to have both. So in my view, I think the way the generation, the new generation is looking at employment is completely changing. Okay, and I think like for them, it's more important that they enjoy the work. Okay, they find it, I think, like even words like I want meaningful employment, you can hear from the younger generation. Okay, which I don't think so, the older generation ever used, ever even thought about it that way. Okay, which is very good in my view. I think there's so much of consciousness about the environment, about what they are giving. Okay, so all that I really feel comes together with this different expectation levels, that way. And so that's where I think people come and say that we want flexible employment, we want to be a consultant. Okay, so I personally feel, I think, as long as they are able to be they're able to contribute, okay, and they have integrity. Okay, so I think it has to be that they have to be transparent in what they're doing. Okay, and integrity, if that's the core and if that's the key, I think it doesn't matter, as long as they have to work in one place or two places or whatever, based on the norms of the organization. Okay, I'm not saying like we should likely flout the rules or not follow certain things, but if the organization is accepting it, I'm fine with that, moonlighting or whatever it is. Okay, but I think, yeah, being a consultant, see, for us, I think we should, as employers, I always feel we have to move. We have to only look at productivity. We have to look at the well-being of the individual, that way. Okay, today, well-being, I think, again, the definition has changed, the meaning has changed. What is well-being for an individual? Gone are those days when having a permanent job means emotional well-being. Okay, today it's not so. Okay, so you may have the best of the jobs, but you'll be stressed, you will not be happy. Okay, so I think physical, emotional well-being, in my view, I think we should really give credence to. And if that's there, I think if an employer is very conscious of that and is able to accept the kind of flexibility kind of a thing, I think that will do good to the organization, that will do good to the employee also as such. So it's more important, I think, is the satisfaction, the engagement of that employee with the employer, which I think is the most important thing today.
Fantastic. I think great insights, Latha, and thank you very much. we at least loved the conversation. We have insights coming in from an experienced person like you in the industry. And I'm sure the industry is emerging a lot as we speak today. Things are changing day by day, and hopefully it may settle for a medium term in some fixed manner. But change is always constant, as we see that we have to adapt to it in the best way possible. So thank you very much, and we hope to catch up with you soon in person. And thanks for joining me, choreography, for this.
Yeah, Latha, thank you so much. It was wonderful, and hearing all your opinions and everything, there's a lot of learning for me for sure. And it's been a pleasure being with you today. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Santosh, and all the very best to Micrographio. And as I said earlier, also, I think it's a great move in terms of looking at these kind of work near home. I mean, co-working spaces, and ultimately, I think a human being or an employee is looking at freedom and flexibility. And I think like you people are really in that space of creating something where you can contribute to the emotional well-being of an individual, which I already said is the core of a being as such. And I think like it's great. It's lovely to hear that, you people are really growing. We want you to grow. We want you to really contribute so that, all the employees really feel happy in wherever they are, they feel happy working as such. And yeah, I think it's wonderful. So all the very best to both you and to the entire organization.
Thank you very much.